I feel like this is kind of sad without like an actual like intro song yet.
I know.
We'll work on it.
Yeah.
All right. So welcome back to episode 2 of the inaugural Cinemacast podcast.
Yes. How's it going?
It's going good. Sorry, I've been kind of absent for a couple weeks.
Oh, it's good. Like I said, this is my spring break weekend, so I've just been relaxing. I haven't worried too much about anything.
That's good. I was awake for like 57 hours at the beginning of this week, so
Yeah.
this is a welcome relief. So hopefully our viewers are doing well. We haven't published our other first episode yet, but some people listened to it and they said it was pretty good.
Yeah, my dad listened to it. He liked it.
Yeah, I sent it to some friends and they're like, wow, this is actually a lot more professional than I would have expected.
I know.
Which, looking back on this from like year 3, will be like very embarrassing comparing the levels of professionalism. Yeah. But for right off the bat, I think we're doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, I'm happy with it.
Okay, me too. So I think it would be helpful if we kind of talk about our agenda for the day, so like our viewers can kind of like hear all the fun topics that we have lined up.
Yeah.
So the ones we have written down as far as movies, we want to talk about Black Panther. We want to talk about Annihilation, Game Night, Maze Runner, John Wick, The Ritual, and then if there's any other movies or TV shows that we've seen.
Yeah, anything that pops in our heads, I think we'll mention them. These are probably the ones that we're going to spend the most time on. Is probably Black Panther, Annihilation.
Probably those two.
I'm guessing those two are going to take up the more time.
I think the others are just like quick references.
Yeah.
And then as far as movie news topics, we want to talk about Disney shuffling their release date schedules between, I know Infinity War changed.
Yeah.
And that caused something else to change.
Well, yeah, it's obviously going to make some other studios kind of mad.
Yeah. So we'll kind of talk about that. The Wrinkle in Time early reviews coming out that are pretty bad. And talk about if people had the wrong expectations for this movie.
Yeah.
About how Jon Favreau is going to be showrunning his own live-action Star Wars.
Yeah,
series.
on the Disney,
yet announced streaming
the Disney
service.
Netflix kind of thing. Yeah.
And then also, since we'll be talking about Star Wars, kind of start figuring out what our Star Wars segment is going to be. Since there's so much Star Wars news, we'll probably be referencing something every week.
Yeah, for sure.
And included in that Star Wars segment is the series finale of Star Wars Rebels and what those implications could mean for the Star Wars canonized universe.
Yeah. Now, it's funny because I know a lot of people don't watch Rebels, but a lot of people do. But you never know what's going to show up in future movies. Mm-hmm. We know Saw Gerrera showed up from Rogue One, or in Rogue One from the Clone Wars, so...
Yep, and there's a couple other things that we'll probably bring up in that segment. Definitely have to talk about the Oscars, because anyone who cares about movies, you have to care about the elite voting on their own favorites, and you know, how a guy can go from directing Pan's Labyrinth to Hellboy to Pacific Rim, and then come back to direct a movie like Shape of Water. Quite a diverse category of movies.
Yeah, category of movies. And there's a lot of news out of the Oscars from this week, so that's a good one if you're very interested in the Oscars. We'll be covering a couple things.
So we are very glad and looking forward to having you guys join us for this hour-long special for episode 2, and we'll go ahead and get it kicked off.
Yeah, and also, one thing before we do start with Black Panther is just a little plug in on some of the other social media stuff. We have been dropping a couple of videos on YouTube on the Cinemacast channel, and there are bite-sized clips of this podcast and the podcast from the last one, so be watching for those. And, you know, Instagram as well, Cinemacast. But we'll start with Black Panther. I want to get your take first on how did you like it? Like, I'm not going to say rate it instantly, but...
Okay, I'll give it my personal rating, because we haven't finalized our Cinemacast review hierarchy.
Yeah.
But for me, from the really, really critical movie guy, honestly, I give it an A-.
That was exactly it. All right, I'm on the same page with that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've seen this movie 3 times now, and I feel like...
me too.
Yeah.
I've only ever seen 2 movies 3 times in theaters. This and Spectre.
Okay, cool. I saw Spider-Man, the first one with Andrew Garfield, like 5 times in 1 week.
You and Paredes, man. You guys love Spider-Man.
Yeah. All right, so Black Panther, I saw it 3 times, and I'm happy to say that, you know, the first time I loved it, second time I liked it maybe I liked it more the second time, and when you watch it a third time, you always get into this like thing where like, am I gonna be bored? Because I kind of know what's gonna happen. But I went in the third time. I knew every spoiler, everything that was gonna happen, and I enjoyed it just as much, I would say, as the second time. Which is good news, because when I watch a movie, I don't know. The reason I'm giving it an A- as well is hands down to the fact that I can watch this and still get something new out of each time I watch it.
Okay.
What do you think about the performances?
Honestly, I was a very big fan going into Black Panther. I think that from early on, people could tell that this was the right movie that needed to be made, and that from the very first onset of production, everybody put in the right amount of diligence, dedication, and respect for this film to make sure that it was the final product that everybody wanted.
Yeah, did they hire people specifically for studying culture and making sure they get a lot of things right?
I'm not sure about that, because I know, surprisingly, a lot of what came out of the story is based off of the Black Panther comics, which, it surprises most people. But just the fact that they hired, Ryan Coogler to be the director, and that he got some really, really talented African-American cast, and that even people who were auditioning for this, I read an article the other day about how one actress was auditioning for the role that Letitia Wright ended up taking of the princess, and she actually, according to her story, that she dropped out of the running because she felt like she didn't fit the character as well physically, and she wanted to be a good representation of not only of African Americans, but of actual African actors and actresses. And I thought that's super cool, and that they've had that kind of expectation of we're gonna do this the right way because we want to set this great expectation. And it there was that feeling that people saw from the trailers and from the industry whispers back and forth. So I was very excited going into it. I saw in the whole movie, it just kept exceeding my expectations. I was like, this is even cooler. This is so well done. There were a few things that I kind of might have picked up on, but for the most part, I thought they did a great job. There were some CGI issues kind of towards the end. The first fight sequence was a little choppy, but overall, I think it's a great Marvel movie. It's a great movie in general, and I will be happy with any movie that people are dedicated to put the right amount of quality into. I mean, for me, it's like a food or a pizza. I'm a big foodie, and I'll eat anything. I don't care what the ingredients are if they blend together and if they're good quality ingredients. And if you cook it right, it'll taste good, and if you cook it really well, it'll taste great. And I feel like Black Panther is kind of like that. They make sure that they got good artists who made good music, and then they put it very talentedly into the movie. When they walk into the casino and you have the Weeknd song playing throughout the casino. It was this really cool kind of blend of, it's a soundtrack, but it's not necessarily like the overlay track. It was infused into the scenes, into the movie, into the cars that Claw has in his caravan when he first pulls up. And that was just a very unique way of kind of building this world and having this world creation without just superimposing all these things that people made for the movie.
The soundtrack was awesome. I will point out my favorite part of the whole movie. After seeing it 3 times, it's still my favorite part, is when Michael B. Jordan is walking up to the throne after being in the ancestral plane.
Oh, and it's upside down.
And it's upside down, and it's slowly turning right side up, and just his theme in the background as he's walking towards it, just every single time, I'm just that's a cool shot. From a visual standpoint, music standpoint, I understand what they're trying to do. He's flipping everything upside down.
Exactly, yeah. It was a visual representation of what's happening in the plot.
Yeah, and I just every single time I watched that, I was just that's that one scene that I really like. It,
Okay.
Just a personal.
That's cool. That's cool. I know that I liked a lot of Wakanda. I thought that the world building was so cool. I was even telling my roommates, I'm more excited to see Black Panther 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 than any upcoming Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Because that's how interesting they made not only the culture, the location, the technology, but the characters. I mean, Letitia Wright's character is Suri, the younger sister.
Yeah.
She was so cool.
She was funny. I wonder what they're gonna. In the future, it's gonna be fun to see her grow into that more.
Yeah, I know people were talking about like they want to see her team up with like Spider-Man and Peter
Or
Parker.
her be like the next Iron Man or something.
Yeah,
and there's stuff I
yeah.
don't think ever is gonna happen. But
I mean, but I think she just had a great character, a great role, and one of the things that I thought was interesting for me was kind of trying to understand from the perspective of different cultures watching this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm probably like culturally white, but my family's Hispanic, and kind of trying to see this from the standpoint of like how impactful this movie was. Because I know I have some African American friends, and they were so excited for this movie.
Yeah.
And seeing the movie and then coming out of this movie, they're like, this movie is amazing, it's incredible. And there's kind of been a discussion about like why is this movie so influential? And I was talking with one of my African American friends about it because I had some ideas of why I kind of maybe thought why and wanted to kind of get her perception. And what we ended up talking about was how up until now, we have had a lot of black culture, a lot of we have BET, we have TV, we have Tyler Perry making movies about black culture. We had Girls' Night, who came out in 2017. That was, a female cast of Queen Latifah, Will Smith's wife. I should know her name. I can't remember. She's from The Matrix.
Mrs. Smith, I can't.
And then you had Tiffany Haddish. She's a big star right now. And, all these current movies are either about black culture and black society right now.
Yeah.
Or they're historical, like 12 Years a Slave, and kind of recognizing some of the difficulties that, existed in the past, like Selma, or The Color Purple, that are very important to highlight, where we have been, both the strong sides and the kind of uncomfortable dark sides of the past.
Yeah.
Even looking at the Oscars, like we have Mudbound right now, and you have Mary J. Blige, who plays supporting actress about a family in, I think, Louisiana after World War II, and it's kind of like bringing to light, like, this is part of our culture, this is part of our history.
Yeah.
Let's recognize it, let's learn about it, let's embrace it. But the difference with Black Panther is it's looking to the future. It's not looking at where we are right now. It's not looking to the past.
Yeah.
It's something that's saying, this is who we could be, this is who we can be.
Yeah.
This is something for us to look forward to, even if it's fiction or real. This is something for us to be inspired by and excited by. And when I was talking with my friend about this, like, she totally agrees. She's like, there really isn't anything like this that we can, like, quote unquote, like, dream about or be excited about.
Yeah.
Whether it's like Star Wars necessarily, or like, when was the last time there was something that was like aspirational with like an African American character in film? And the only thing that she and I could come up with was like President Palmer from like season 2 of 24, like a black president before we had Barack Obama. But aside from that, like, you really don't have anything that's like forward looking or inspirational or
and
like.
It's really interesting because I was watching a couple YouTube videos, and there's this one, a little shout out to ATZ YouTube channel. He was talking a bit about Coco and what that did for him. I think he's Mexican descent, and so having seen Coco, Pixar, typically, in the past, I can't remember them doing anything culturally kind of like this, other than
The Asian Kid and Up.
Yeah, Up maybe with that. But this one was so reliant on getting that Mexican culture right and how it feels to be. Well, I didn't know much about the Day of the Dead until this movie, and he talks about how he hits a lot of those points in the movie where they do capture that feel. And I think Black Panther is such a unique movie because, man, I can't remember ever seeing a movie based in Africa that wasn't about the hardships of the African people there. And Black Panther tastefully touches on those things while still being a beacon in the middle of Africa of just like, hey, like, I don't know, yeah.
I had this interesting conversation, and this phrase came up, that Black Panther essentially made Africa cool.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a cool phrase. I don't want anybody to be like offended by that for anything, to be like imply that like Africa isn't cool.
Yeah.
But like from like the end of the movie and like the special scene when it's like the mid-credit scene, or maybe it was a mid-credit scene, where they're like at the UN and King T'Challa's talking about how, Wakanda's no longer hiding in the shadows, strong leaders build bridges in times of need, and like the one guy's like, you know, what does a country of farmers have to offer the rest of the world? And like all the Wakandans like smile, and like and the audience is like super excited because we know how cool and exciting Wakanda is.
Yeah.
And kind of like that like just like that feeling and idea of like, oh, like we've got stuff, like we're really cool, like you guys have no idea.
Yeah.
That's like a really cool attitude that I think like most people just aren't used to associating with, you know, Africa or necessarily with like Black culture, because that's just not a narrative that's ever usually brought up. And I thought it was so cool. I mean, I wanted to be Wakandan. I wanted to go to Wakanda.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was the absolute coolest thing, and I'm just really happy that everyone else was able to really, really appreciate it, especially, I think, the people who felt the most passionate about this movie.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Ryan Coogler and
Sure.
his relationship with Michael B. Jordan.
Because he's had him in all of his last movies.
Yeah,
or
and
at least
Creed 2, not going to be too far off.
I don't think he's directing Creed 2, though.
No?
No.
Oh, dang. Either way, Ryan Coogler likes Michael B. Jordan, and I think he was the perfect fit for Eric Killmonger in this movie.
I would agree.
Think?
For some reason, it felt like Eric Killmonger was too American at some points.
Yeah.
Or is that just me? Like,
I don't know.
Like, I don't know if it was just like the acting or if it was just like how hard he was coming out, but he just seemed like he was like very adamantly like, I'm a frustrated American character.
Well, just full of attitude.
Yeah, and I was just like, compared to everyone else who was just like so seamlessly their characters, for me, that was the only acting that was a little jarring. But the reason I gave an A- was just because the one thing that I personally would have changed about the movie is I would not have put Martin Freeman in this movie. There was no need to have like the token white character to like please anybody. Like, there was no need for that. I felt like you definitely needed a connection to like the United States government and to the Avengers.
Yeah.
But I would have been way more happy of replacing Martin Freeman's character with the Falcon.
Bucky?
No, with the Falcon.
Falcon.
Because Falcon is military.
Yeah.
He flies with his suit, and I believe he's a pilot. And we've seen him in other Marvel movies, and he's a superhero character. So he would have a very cool kind of like dichotomy playing like across from Black Panther. And he's just thinking like, oh, this is just some king dressing up in a suit and not realizing like, oh, like this dude's like a legit superhero. And then thinking like, oh, like Wakanda, like, hey, like, you know, I'm from the United States. Stuff's really cool. Like, you guys don't know it so much. And then still have the same exact interactions with like his chief of like his general being like, if he touches you again, I'll put him through the desk. And just being like, hey, like this is just an American guy who doesn't understand, and phrase it more of like American government and not just like, hey, this is just a white. Because I felt like he didn't really need to be there. And I mean, I love the quip of like, oh, did you bring me another broken white guy to fix? I thought that was hilarious.
I thought that was really funny too.
But I just thought like Martin Freeman took away from letting the Wakandans essentially take care of their own battle.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. There's the one part when he goes up to him and
M'Baku.
T'Challa's family. They go to M'Baku.
Yeah,
with the
such
gorilla
a
tribe or
such a
whatever.
cool character. I loved M'Baku.
And they go up there, and you know, I had noticed like you stand out a lot, man. Like, you know.
Yeah.
But then he gets up there, and then he starts talking. I was just like, there's some cultural things that I feel like, you know, you're going up against this other tribe leader. You're going to ask them for help and stuff, and
being like a CIA guy, like you should know to like back off. Right?
Yeah, and he didn't fit at all in that one scene. And I think it's funny because they touched on that when he's just like, you know, they all start doing their tribal chants and stuff, and they're just like, you don't talk like it's like you got to understand where you are. Like
and I felt like, at least for me, I thought the story would have fit better if they like that whole scene would have played out as just like an outsider. And I mean, I think that's probably what it was, but like I thought it would still be more fitting and even funnier, more dramatic if like if it was Falcon being like, hey, like you have to help, and M'Baku just being like, I don't know you, you're not from our country, like I don't even like these people, T'Challa's family, but we're at least from the same country, even if we have a big cultural divide, like you have no business being here, and make it more of like fish out of water for Falcon because like he doesn't understand the history and the culture and the technology. And I thought it would have been funnier of like seeing him react to all the cool advancements in technology than Martin Freeman being like, what? I've never seen anyone make a maglev train go that fast. Versus like Falcon being like, yo, man, this is so sweet. Like, look at all this tech. Or being like,
It's just
wait,
like this is like
in,
beyond.
like in what simulator? And he's like, what, the sand? Like, I'm going to fly a spaceship in a sand? I just thought, like, for me, I think it would have fit better. And then you would have had a cooler parallel between, like, Eric Killmonger growing up in America, African-American. And
then have someone helping who did grow up in America as well, but...
Yeah, like having, like, the two sides of, it's kind of like, you know, experience. And I feel like that would have also played into the story. It's like, we aren't necessarily what our history or what our family is. It's like we are our environment, we are our experiences.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, we choose to be who we are. And I felt like, personally, like, I would have liked it. And for me, that's what would have made it an A. But I still love the movie for what it was.
Yeah.
I think they totally deserve all the money they're making, like the second most profitable Marvel movie.
Yeah. I think a big reason why I'm going to see why my dad liked it too, because, you know, there's a lot of older people that kind of, they've been getting kind of tired of the shield side of things.
Yes.
And I have too.
Okay.
In a small sense. I understand a lot more about the lore and stuff and with the Marvel stuff, but being such a different movie, I think that's why it has been appealing to just about everybody who maybe was a little sick and tired of the shield stuff. I'll just say the shield stuff, because being in Wakanda was a complete flip on, you know, colorful in Africa instead of kind of like the gray business side of Marvel. So,
yeah, no, I totally agree. You know, it's nice to see superheroes in their own environment, not necessarily orchestrated by this, you know, government Marvel shield kind of administration. And just to throw out some numbers of like how successful Black Panther is. Its domestic total as of March 9th was $530 million. Its foreign take is 419. And so right now it says it's sitting right around $950 million. And I think with the March 10th take, I think it's crossed $1 billion, I think, bringing in like the Friday estimates. So that's amazing. I mean, if we go to like all-time domestic, it's the 9th most profitable movie in the U.S. of all time. For Marvel, it's the second highest.
And I think it comes down to what you were saying before. It came out at the right time in the right way.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you released a solid Marvel movie in February,
Yeah.
I mean, they always come out in May.
Yeah.
So releasing it 2 months earlier, and honestly, I thought releasing it during Black History Month was the absolute right call.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's good business right there.
I mean, it's good business, but I also think it's
for
good.
the message.
It's good for what they intended it to be. They wanted it to be a good movie for its own, but also a movie that was influential and impactful for the community that it was built around and respected for.
Yeah.
I think it was absolutely great. Shout out to everybody who made it. Super excited for the next one.
Yeah.
And I love the way that they killed Claw just like super fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the Kylo Ren thing I feel with Snoke. It adds more to the villain in the future. So, you know, at least for me, it added more to Eric Killmonger. It's just like, hey, no, he's not bad just because he wants to sell stuff, wants to do this. He's got some deep motivation, and he will get rid of anyone in his way. He'll use them, get rid of them.
Yeah.
But perfectly done, I think.
And I think kind of going back to like the Game of Thrones effect, if you give us villains that we disagree with, but we can't argue with their reasoning and their logic, you don't even make them human, you make them real. You make them logical.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people feel the way about Killmonger. They're like, you know, I don't like what he's doing, but I can't argue with him because his logic is right, and like he's kind of like he has a point, and like I feel bad for him, but I also can't hate him because I understand.
He's a product of his environment and his upbringing, and that's one of the reasons why I like him as one of the Marvel villains of my favorite Marvel villain. I think he's in the top one, or he's probably top two.
Okay.
Because of that, it's like you just like, I wish you didn't die. I wish you didn't die. I wish you would have made better decisions leading up to this, so you could have come at this a better way instead of such a radical way.
So I know people have been arguing, like, how do you top Michael B. Jordan as the villain for, the next Black Panther? And one thing that people have talked about is they haven't announced Black Panther 2. I mean, I think it's a sure bet that they're going to make it, whether it's in Phase 4 or Phase 5. But with the end of Phase 4, or is it Phase 3? At the end of Phase 3, we have Avengers Infinity War 1 and technically Part 2 that's been renamed. So you're bringing into it a whole bunch of weird, a lot of people are going to die. You're bringing in the Soul Stone, you're bringing in the Time Stone, you're bringing in time travel.
Well, we started on such a personal story for Black Panther. Now I feel like it's going to get a little bit, it's going to get bigger.
It's going to get bigger, but is there the possibility of, with all the time shifting and resetting, that potentially Eric Killmonger is prevented from dying, or that his complete story arc is changed by his dad not being murdered? Ooh. Is that something that they might go through in Phase 4 is, like, time altering?
Yeah. Well, we see from the trailers of Infinity War that Wakanda is featured heavily, and there's a reason for Thanos wanting to be there, and I have my own theories about that.
What are those theories?
I think the Soul Stone is in the middle of all the vibranium underneath Wakanda, and that's been bleeding out some of the powers to the heart-shaped herb.
Okay.
That's been allowing the Black Panthers to connect with the
afterlife.
Yeah, the ancestral plane.
Yeah.
It's that the power of the stone that's in there.
Okay.
I think he's going to come and somehow rip the whole thing out.
I've heard a lot of theories about that. Since Thor 2.
You think Heimdall has it?
I swear Heimdall has it. His eyes glow orange. The color of the stone is orange.
He can see all souls.
He has said in the movies, I can see all 9 trillion souls across all 9 realms.
Yeah.
He has an orange stone in the middle of his breastplate. And when he's on a different world than Thor, in Thor Ragnarok, he can, like, connect with Thor, and Thor's eyes turn orange. Like, all of that says hardcore powers.
What's hilarious is I forgot about that because that was my first up and running, and then I just thought of this other one. I completely forgot.
Yeah.
I feel like they're on equal footing for possibility, though.
They are. And the only reason why I'm thinking why the Soul Stone could be in Wakanda at the time of the death is we know that they've hidden the stones in very technologically advanced societies or in safe places leading up to now.
Yeah.
They put I don't remember their names, but the Tesseract was kept in Asgard, which is essentially space Wakanda. They kept the
Ether or whatever.
With the Nova Core.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the Reality Stone, I think.
Yeah, the Reality Stone's with the Nova Core.
Yes.
Which is also a location in the Infinity War. They gave the
Power Stone, maybe that's with the Nova Core.
They gave the Power Stone to the Nova Core. The Ether went back to the Collector.
Yes.
And we know that the Sanctuary contains the Soul Stone with Doctor Strange. So
the reason I think it's in the vibranium, though, is, at the beginning of the movie, how the meteor comes from outer space and just...
Sure.
The thing is, it could be both. I'm excited to see.
I just think it would be cool if, like, the beginning, because obviously Heimdall's with Thor, and they get not attacked by a ship, but, a ship gets there.
Yeah.
And we know that Loki at some point probably gives Thanos the Tesseract.
Yeah.
Or the Space Stone.
Yeah.
And we don't know where Thor lands. We're assuming they're going to, I guess, like, resettle in Ireland. But the easiest place for them to assimilate into is Wakanda, because that's a very most similar place to
and they're talking about bringing in refugees and stuff. Maybe it's...
right?
Maybe it's them as refugees.
I mean, I think they were talking more about, like,
I know.
political African refugees, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, in the ending shot of the trailer, we see, like, Cap, Bucky, Falcon, Black Panther, his General Okoye, and a couple other people, like, running in slow motion. We don't see Thor, and we don't see any...
Which... Guardians of the Galaxy, I think he's going to be with them, at least starting out.
Yeah, because there's like 3 locations.
From the trailer.
There's there's the African location, there's like the New York space location,
and then there's
like
another
this double space location, and there's at least 2 we haven't seen.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at, and the only reason why I don't want the Soul Stone just to be at the middle of the vibranium is that I don't want that to take away from, like, the Wakandans, right? I feel like, I mean,
like that's the only reason they.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
That, and also, then what the heck is Heimdall? Because he like, everything adds up to him having the Soul Stone.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't have the Soul Stone, he's way too powerful.
Down
than
to
he
the
needs
color,
be,
too.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Interesting.
and his sword controls like the Bifrost, and like, I mean, like, so many things connect.
Yeah.
But that's just a little tentative discussion and preview on where are my stones?
Yeah.
Where am I?
All right, cool. So that's wrapping up Black Panther. A-, you said A-. I agree with that.
Yep.
Real excited for Black Panther 2. But I think we're going to talk about another movie that came out last month, right? Or this month?
Came out last month. Came out in February, but it came out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. And it's got a weird thing about the release. You know, it's released in theaters, but
That's
for
right.
some time, and then it's going to be on Netflix, I think.
So it's Annihilation. So Annihilation has the domestic distribution is in theaters, and I'm not sure who did the distribution, whether it was like Columbia or Sony. But I believe in the U.S. and Canada, distribution was in theaters.
Yes.
But Netflix got the distribution rights internationally. So at the time of the theatrical release, I think it also released online internationally on Netflix.
Have any other movies done that?
I know that there have been some things that have done that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they have been released concurrently at the same time.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what at least I can explain from story.
Without spoiling?
Yeah, basically it'll be like what you see in the trailer. It's Natalie Portman, and you see this something lands on Earth, and it produces this shimmer, some kind of zone. It's a zone where they send people in, but nobody has come out yet, and the only person to have come out is Natalie Portman's husband. Well, her name is Lana in the movie, and it's Oscar Isaacs. And he goes in for a military thing, I'm sure, to find out what's going on. He's the only one to make it out, and he's not in good health condition. And so that puts Lana at the motivation to want to go in and figure it out, since she's a biologist.
Mm-hmm. And potentially save her husband.
Yes, figure out what's going on, save her husband. Now, that's how it would be if it were... I feel in your mind, you can think about a movie that, you know, like you go in, you figure out what's the cause, you come out, you save your husband, you kill some monsters along the way. It's a lot more crazy than that.
So we've never really talked about a movie without spoilers, so let's, I guess, try and do like 5 minutes without spoiling anything, and then we can do like a pause and just like transition to the spoilers.
Yeah.
But I would completely agree with you. Half of the movie is exactly what you see in the trailer, and half of the movie is not at all what you see in the trailer.
Yeah.
It's so much more. And I would say, growing up, my mom and I are big sci-fi nerds. She's a big sci-fi horror nerd as well. I saw this movie, and I was severely surprised at how scary this movie was.
Yes.
Because from the trailer, it looks like it's like a sci-fi weird movie with maybe like a little hint of scary. Mm-hmm. No, it's a very slow burn through the beginning to the middle, and it very quickly builds up a strong amount of stress and anxiety.
There's some horrific moments, I would say. That
so much so that I would say the scariest scene in any movie I've ever seen is in this movie. I wouldn't say this movie is the scariest movie I've ever seen, but there was about 4 minutes when I was in a theater with 300 people and everybody was reclining into their seats, uncomfortable, scared, and leaning over the person next to them saying like, what in the hell is going on?
Yeah.
What the heck? I'm so scared.
Yeah.
Which for me at the time was very scary, but also kind of exciting.
Yeah. Well, it's not often you get a movie to do that to you.
And not even to you, to everyone, everybody in the entire theater. Like, props to whoever either wrote the book and came up with that idea, or the
execution.
Directors.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
I will say this movie features very much of Lovecraftian monsters, I would say, or creatures that you don't understand. Let's take zombies, for example. You understand a zombie. You know what its weaknesses are. You know, just from movies and stories past, you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. This movie gives you a lot of things you don't understand, and that's part of the scare. Yes. It's not things that are vague, things that you don't see. It's just things you don't understand, and therefore they're already scary on their own nature, adding in suspense, adding in anxiety. But then once you're actually confronted face to face with a lot of these either questions or monsters, it's very scary because you don't know what they are, and it adds to the level of intimidation. Because if you see this monster, if it's a bear, okay, this is what I do to take care of a bear. If it's a bear, bears can climb trees, so you have to outrun it, but you have to outrun the person you're running against. Or if it's if like an alligator, you have to run in zigzags. Or if it's like a lion or like a shark, you punch it in the gills. Like a fair amount if you understand the animal or the monster, or if it's like a burglar in your house, at least in Texas. You can kill the burglar and you're legally fine. I don't know about Utah, but like you kind of know how to deal with things.
Yeah.
This movie throws so many weird things at you that because you're not able to perceive what it is, you're not able to perceive the full length of its danger, and therefore you're not able to perceive what your recourse of action is to protect yourself or to stay safe. And so that just brings in like all these layers of confusion and honestly terror.
Yeah. And I think we might probably have to cover this in like 3 different sections. One, kind of talk about the regular story. 2, talking about the sci-fi story. 3, talking about the metaphorical story.
Okay.
And I do want to say, this isn't a movie. It's not like Predator. It's not a monster slasher movie.
It's a cerebral movie.
It's a cerebral survival movie where you don't know what you're trying to survive against.
So maybe to kind of wrap up the non-spoiler section, to let people know who haven't seen this, I definitely recommend this movie. I recommend it to people, but I try and give them a disclaimer. It is extremely more scary and a little bit more graphic than you would have expected. However, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was visually stunning. It was well executed. The end gets kind of crazy. But if you enjoy sci-fi movies, I would say this movie is 50% Arrival. I would say it is...
The tension from Arrival, it's
very, very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar to Arrival. So I'd say it's 50% Arrival, 25% The Day the Earth Stood Still, and 25% a mixture between Pathogen and Alien.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of comparisons to Alien.
So if you have ever seen any of those movies, it's kind of I won't say a mashup, but it draws from a lot of those themes and a lot of that kind of, I can't really think of the word, but kind of that environment, that kind of feeling of having to watch those movies.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would recommend. That's what I would say it's very similar to, because from the trailer, it is hard to know what to expect from this movie. And it is a February sci-fi release, which generally means it's a terrible movie.
Yeah.
Which luckily does not fit this bill.
Yeah. And just to give my thought, it is probably my second favorite movie of the year as of right now.
Out of all 5?
Or tied. I've only liked Black Panther and Annihilation, but for 2 completely different reasons.
Sure.
But
it's a good movie.
Those are I'm tied right now with those 2. And so I will say that if it's a different movie, don't go in thinking, if you like Black Panther, you like this. No. I'm just saying for me, it made me think a lot.
I would agree. My roommates and I spent 4 hours after the fact talking about this movie.
Which you don't do usually to like the commuter. Like, you don't
Yeah.
like you don't. So I'm just happy at the beginning. We're getting cooler movies at the beginning of the year that are like Get Out last year,
Well, I think people are finally realizing it's used to be the slow movie period. So if there's a good movie, there's no competition. So everyone will go see that movie, which is why Black Panther is now the 9th highest grossing domestic film of all time.
Yes.
So if you release a good movie without any competition, make a good bang for your buck.
Yeah. Keep an eye out in the beginning of the year.
So I think we'll conclude the non-spoiler version and transition into our spoiler-free segments.
All right.
So
Let's talk about the bear first.
Ah!
All right, so
Yeah, that was creepy.
and so this is what happens.
Okay, was it a bear or was it a cow?
A bear, a cow, or a human, or a...
So it was definitely an animal. I feel like
Yes.
it moved like a bear, but its head looked like a cow.
Yes.
But it was also decomposed.
Yeah, its skull.
Somebody said like that.
Very much.
Yeah, its skull looked like, for me, like I'm from Texas. It looked like a partial longhorn skull.
Yeah.
Because it had like that long snout. So it's like, oh, that's what a bear skull looks like. I'm like, okay, well, I've never seen a bear, but I guess they do have a snout. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so let's set the scene for you. There's one of the characters. There's 5 girls that go in, women.
Yep.
5 women that go in, and they're each, let's say professionals. They work in a field.
They're experts of a field.
Yeah, they're experts in the field. There's one like paramedic. There's one psychologist. There's a biologist. There's a
Physicist?
physicist. Tessa Thompson, I think she's probably the physicist. And there's another, I can't remember what the other one is. So what happens is, at this point in the movie, there's only four left. There's the psychologist, the biologist, the physicist, and the paramedic or something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, throughout the movie, you kind of see they each have their own self-destructive tendency, I would say.
Sure.
So hers, the paramedics, is very much paranoia, and what she does is she ties up all the other ones because she's going crazy.
Well, I think she finally realized that Natalie Portman had a connection to the guy that they saw cutting someone else earlier on. She thought that it was a trap, or that at the very least, this was a very sensitive project and a very intimate team, and to find out that one of your team members had lied to you really scared her after losing team members and being assaulted by creatures.
Yeah.
So, I mean, paranoia aside, she had, I think, at least reasoning.
She had reason. And high-stress environment,
Yeah.
something you wouldn't usually do. I mean, you could see yourself doing, like, she ties them all up and says, all right, now we know that one of you is a liar.
So she was about to kill one of them, right?
What else are you lying about? And here comes the bear.
No. So you hear one of the members who screamed, or who died, screams outside. And you're like, oh, she's still alive. But everybody in the audience is like, okay, she's probably messed up right now. Because we literally saw her body. Natalie Portman went and saw her dead body, right?
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, there's something severely wrong. And so the paramedic's like, oh my gosh, she's still out there, gotta go after her. And everybody else is like, don't go. As soon as she runs outside, we hear the scream, and all of a sudden you hear like this monster voice, like Lost monster style, just like attack. And paramedic's like, gone. And then all of a sudden you see like this like big heavy wolf bear-like animal making sounds, and you see the shadow, and then it starts walking into the room while all the three other women are tied up to chairs. And so then they're like trying to talk to each other and be like, don't move, don't react to it. And it starts walking around, and it's this giant pear-shaped bear, except for its head is half decomposed and its skull is exposed, but its eyeballs are still there.
Yes.
And it's like walking around, and it's like putting its head between both of them, and then walking around to the front. And every time it opens its mouth, it's a woman's scream. It's not a bear scream.
Yeah, and we come to see it, it's the scream of the
girl who was attacked
and was eaten by this bear beforehand.
So it was very, very, very weird. And you got very gratuitous shots of the bear looking at the audience, the bear looking at people, attacking people. Just very, very, very scary.
Yeah.
Like so scared to the point that my roommates and I were like, okay, we have to like watch New Girl and decompress for like 2 hours before we can go to bed. That was just like, that was scary. Yeah. Which I loved. It was unique. The thing I'm curious on is apparently Annihilation is based off of a trilogy of books, which I feel like I have to read now because I have so many unanswered questions.
And I heard the director was talking. What's his name? Garland.
So I heard it Ex Machina.
Yeah. So what he did
plans on doing one movie.
was he didn't do a direct
adaptation.
He said he read the book, and from what he remembered of what he felt from the book, he made an adaptation. And it turns out a lot of people who have read the books say that it's fine because the book can be taken in so many different feelings that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Shimmer and beyond, because I say spoilers is before you get to the Shimmer, basically. Once you get to the Shimmer, we got to explain what the Shimmer is.
Sure.
So
it's a prism.
It's a prism. It basically, you walk in, and what it's doing is it's refracting everything: light, radio waves.
Cell DNA,
and there's a big theme of biology and how what one cell does, what we know cells do. It replicates. But when you're in the Shimmer, your DNA will get replicated and spliced and refracted with anything you touch.
Or with anything around you.
Yeah, plants, animals, sounds, anything. So when this bear eats this one of the scientists, her screams are like spliced into the bear and into the bear's DNA. Weird to say,
Which I think from a physics standpoint is a really unique and somewhat plausible thought, because the reason people get cancer are generally they're exposed to some type of radiation, whether it's carcinogens or different things. People who are exposed to real amounts of radiation are almost guaranteed to have cancer because the radiation particles essentially shoot through your cells and either knock off chunks of your amino acids. And your body has to like repair them in some ways, or it's missing chunks, and therefore like it's missing information. And just like, you know, if you have an assembly line based off a recipe, if you have somebody shooting a shotgun at the recipe book, all of a sudden your strawberry shortcake is going to start coming out very, very wrong.
Yeah.
And so that's one concern about people going to Mars is, okay, well, how are they going to attribute and deal with the radiation both in travel and living on Mars and avoid, you know, getting life-altering cancer? And so I thought the idea of a prism that has some sort of radiation that as things pass through it, it allows all things to kind of interact with each other because everything's based off of matter and cells. So, you know, whether it's like almost like a gravitational refractment, that it causes particles to be attracted to one another and attach different ways, it was like plausibly, not believable, but it was plausibly creative, essentially. And you know, my mom is a real big science nerd, you know, wanted to be a doctor, taking lots and lots of medical classes. And she told me, like, from just the trailer and from the earliest start of the movie, she could tell that was going on. She could see, like, some of, like, the medical things happening in the plants or some of the plant things happening in people or, you know, vice versa. And that's just, like, a really, really interesting idea. It made for some absolutely visually stunning scenes in the movie. But it also added to like kind of the creep and the horror at the same time. So maybe let's transition to like the alien aspect, because that's where I had some of the biggest issues with was the alien aspect.
Ooh, okay, good. Because this is where I think it was perfectly done. So I want to see. I don't know. I want to know what you think.
Okay, I can go first. So I was like something lands and then there's a contamination zone and it's slowly growing. I thought it was interesting that nothing from inside could leave. I thought it was weird only because they didn't explain it, that as soon as the women walked in there, we see them wake up from their tents, and they didn't remember anything, but they had been there for at least like 4 days, or maybe even 2 weeks, I don't remember. So that's weird. We never get explanation of how Oscar Isaacs, or whoever the version of Oscar Isaacs that left, how he was able to leave.
And end up at the home of his wife, Lynn.
Yeah, just the home. We never saw how he got anywhere else. Whereas I feel like in Arrival, they explained all of that, even if it was weird. So there was just some very open-ended, unanswered questions or plot holes surrounding like the alien part. Also, the hole in the ground, the alien anus, that's what my roommate called it. That was very creepy. Like just seeing that and her crawling inside was like unnerving. Then she gets down there, and then it kind of gets like Saw level weird with like the weird face and how it actually turns into like this fire, and then it goes to like Stanley Kubrick, and then like it sucks in some of her blood, and then it starts to clone her. That was like kind of cool, but then it got kind of weird, and then I felt like it was kind of jumping the ship.
Well, I thought it would, when they took her blood, I thought it would literally look like her right off the bat, you know?
Yeah,
and not just like a human form.
Yeah, like that was kind of weird. I thought it was cool, but weird at the same time. I kind of liked. Personally, I thought if the movie had ended with her watching the video and seeing that it was Oscar Isaacs and another version of Oscar Isaacs, and then her just like setting fire to the whole thing, I would feel more comfortable if it ended there. Because then, like, I'm still not sure: is it just an alien substance, or is it an alien entity, or is it an alien robotic entity? Because the one that was mimicking her, it was doing it without conscience. It was just mimicking. But it was learning. So it could be learning like an organism, or it could be learning like...
And it did move on its own sometimes.
Yes. So like it was either inconsistent or it just wasn't very clear what was going on. And at the same time, was that the shell left open as like after like the hot meteorite burned, it essentially burned a hole in the ground? Or was that like the command capsule? Like it wasn't very clear. Plus like it was moving at the same time, so it was giving me like Saw vibes. And then at the end when she like sets fire to the mimicking agent, it burns everything.
Every like the whole shimmer, everything it basically touched.
Yes.
It all grew out of this hole, you know.
But the thing that I thought was confusing was they didn't show us all the different portions of the shimmer be connected underground. So did that also kill the bear and the alligator and everything that was mutated? Or did it only kill the things that were connected? I mean, I thought that the glass trees on the sand were cool because it's like, you know,
Yeah.
Just a slight mutation because like as electricity passes through sand, it turns into glass.
Yeah.
But like, what if the electricity could kind of pass through the sand in a growing matter, kind of like trees, but also like I thought that was cool. But I was just like, you can't explain to me how things that are not interconnected are all catching fire at the same time.
Which I think it comes to its presence. Everything in the shimmer and everything is in its presence. Which takes me to my metaphorical idea of what was going on.
All right. What's your idea?
All right. So I was watching a couple of the interviews with like, is it Alex Garland? I think the director. Him talking a bit about what he thought of it. A little bit of Natalie Portman and Oscar Isaacs talking about what they thought of it. It was really interesting. Oscar Isaac says, for me, the whole movie is about marriage. And this is where things just instantly clicked to me. So we start out, there's this subplot that I didn't think much of at the beginning, but it's Natalie Portman's character, Lena, is cheating with one of her colleagues while Oscar Isaacs has gone on his missions.
Dead.
One of them is a boat before scene. He's just off on a mission. He wasn't dead yet.
Are we sure?
Yeah. And she cut it off with this guy before he was even gone on into the Shimmer one. He's just been in military. He's been gone more than he's been at home.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So what happens is Oscar Isaacs finds out about this cheating, but he doesn't say anything. He knows about it, but he's so afraid of confronting Lena that he takes the next job, and really in his heart, he's hoping he doesn't come back. Everyone that has been sent into the Shimmer from the psychologist doctor has volunteered to go in. They weren't, forced to go in. They volunteered, just kind of like how Oscar Isaacs volunteered to go in.
Didn't know that either.
So Lena's talking to the psychologist woman, and she's saying that, we've been kind of finding a lot of people that are kind of broken in some way.
Sure.
And we see that in the 5 women. The psychologist has cancer, so her body is self-destructing in a sense.
Okay.
Tessa Thompson's character, I think she's the physicist maybe, she cuts herself because she's trying to find more feeling in life.
Sure.
She's self-destructing herself in a way. Lena, through her cheating, was self-destructing her marriage in a way.
Okay.
The paramedic lady, very quick to anger. When you're in the Shimmer, everything refracts what you are and makes it maybe more and morphs it a bit.
Okay.
Makes her very paranoid, makes her very angry. She's the one who decides to tie them all up and is about to kill. Then we have the one scientist that lost her girl to leukemia.
Yep.
And that loss was so much that she couldn't get past it. And so all these women, other than Elena, are going in kind of hoping they don't come out, because they have these self-destructive habits that they've given into.
Okay.
But we want to know, why does Oscar Isaac make it out? If he finds out about this cheating that his wife is doing, and he goes in, broken, he's the only one that makes it to the middle. He's the one who confronts the alien first. But he comes out.
Well, technically he died. The alien came out.
Technically he died. I mean, yes, he burned himself with a phosphorus grenade. So I feel the whole movie is a metaphor for self-destruction and giving into it or fighting against it. Lena was the only one who had something she wanted to come back to, which is save her husband. She didn't know it was a clone anyway. At the end. She wasn't going in to die. She was going in to figure out what was wrong, confront it, fight, and come back out.
Okay.
So all these other women go in, they give up. Tessa Thompson turns into a tree because she's just like, I'd rather just become one with it. I can't. Cancer, she just goes in and lets it become a part of her, take her over. So let's talk a bit about Lena going into the hole.
Okay.
She goes into the hole, it takes some of her DNA, and it starts mimicking her. In a sense, she's coming face to face with herself, and she could either let it kill her in a weird way because it mimics her,
Mm-hmm.
or she can kill it and get out. And I'm thinking the whole presence of the thing is that guilt that she has, that self-destructive habit. So she goes in, she watches the video, sees her husband die, and sees this weird clone thing is the one that came back. She goes ahead, she kills her clone. She makes it out all the way, and you see at the very end, she confronts Oscar Isaac. She's like, "Are you, like, are you my husband?" And he's just like, "I don't think so." And she's just like, "All right, so I know you're the clone thing," but they hug anyway. I think what Oscar Isaac was going for is there was this marriage that was failing, and it was Lena who is the one cheating, and he finds out.
Mm-hmm.
He goes off. He doesn't, he's done with life, I guess. He makes it out, though, because the clone gets him, turns into him. He comes out, and I think the very end is just kind of the key to the whole thing. You see how their eyes were different when they were hugging each other?
Well, their eyes
Still had, like, the thing in it.
shimmered.
Yeah. You go into this horrific trauma of cheating in a marriage or whatever, and she faces her demon, overcomes it, comes back out. They're both the same people, kind of. One's a clone, the other one's not. But they're not the same as before. They're not that happy as before. They have that just constant weight of just like what happened, but they're over it. And they decided to be with each other again.
Interesting. I mean, all of her cells are completely mutated, and she's like part alien, but she's still the same human. She's just
Different.
like quarantined, messed up biologically, which she was keeping track of the whole time, and she was fine with, which was also weird.
Yeah.
It was almost like a self-obsession to like.
She just kind of knew.
Although Oscar Isaac is literally the thing that she killed, and that's the only thing that doesn't make sense to me. Is she killed her clone? I don't think she'd be comfortable with Oscar Isaac's clone.
I know. And it's weird to think.
Unless it's kind of what you're talking about, and how she knew that this wasn't my husband. However, she knew it was the only other person in the rest of the entire world that she could share something with, because she knew she was no longer human.
Yeah.
And this was the only other person or being or entity that could understand.
And in a way took his memories, took his essence. We know it's a different thing, but
Sure. Yeah.
in a sense, it can talk to Lena. It knows who Lena is. In the video when Oscar Isaac, he's just like, just like, if you see Lena, tell her I love her, and she's like, doesn't know who he's talking to, and then you see the clone, and then after he asks, "Are you Lena?" and she's like, "Yeah," and then he goes and hugs her, and kind of it took his essence. It's a different person, but it took his everything.
That's weird. I'm also curious because there's 3 books.
Yeah, is that the first one or all 3?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm gonna have to add it to my reading list.
Yeah.
But needless to say, it was a very cerebral movie that made you think of a lot of questions, and it's just cool. It's cool to have movies that make you think about life or think about the story. Because I know Blade Runner 2049 definitely had that for me.
Yeah.
It had me questioning so many things, not only about humanity, but about yourself and about different stories, ideas. And I really appreciate movies that do that, because the whole point is to tell a story.
Yeah.
And a story is usually only a portion of a greater story.
Yeah.
And if you can't convey part of that greater story, I think you didn't write a good story.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If people aren't always thinking like, okay, what happened before this? What happened after this? What happened around this?
Yeah.
Or just being like, oh, there's just so many more things that this could be referring to, versus like the end of The Last Jedi. People don't have any questions.
Yeah.
I mean, they have like,
Because you don't know what's gonna happen.
like what's gonna happen, but that's because it's like nobody has anything to look forward to. I don't know who else is left in the universe. They blew up 6 planets.
Yeah.
There's no longer First Order. There's no longer any Jedi. There's no longer Resistance.
Bless you.
We'll cut that out. But yeah, it's just kind of like, I don't know what exists in this world anymore, and therefore I have no more questions. And it's the opposite for Annihilation.
Yeah.
Is that alligator still alive? Is the bear still alive?
They just unsplice because the thing died? Or
Exactly.
Like,
just so cool. So cool.
yeah.
So that's probably good for Annihilation.
Yeah, I know. I was like, me and my wife were talking about it for a real long time. I was just like, man, I don't even know. Like,
I'm curious, was your wife uncomfortable with how?
she didn't watch it.
Oh, she didn't watch it.
No.
Oh, okay,
I had some extra time, and my movie pass was
nice.
burning a hole in my pocket. So
Because I know my roommates and I were trying to debate like, were parts of this movie too much? Like, was the bear scene and then the stomach scene too much, or like when like the clone is like pressing her up against the door, is that kind of too much? Because some movies do that.
yeah,
Some movies do
they go too
cross the line,
far.
or go splice.
Yeah,
Trying to be respectful on this podcast, but Splice, that was a very disgusting movie. I don't think Annihilation was disgusting, but like I made sure I let my mom know because she was looking forward to it very much. I was like, hey, just so you know, like this is a very, very graphic and gross and scary movie. I don't know if you're ready for that. And she's like, oh, that makes me more excited because if you know what I'm on.
I guess the less you understand too. Like,
Yeah. And I mean, she's like a nurse and she like likes pathogens and stuff. So she was like, oh, that's exciting. It's not real. So like, it's exciting.
yeah,
But it definitely pushed the envelope for sure.
yeah, and that's why I think it's memorable. That's why I think it's in my number 2 or top. You know, tied with my best movie of the year because it's so different, so different.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to go to any other movie.
Yeah. Favorite scene, bear scene. I would see the movie again just for the bear scene. And then my second favorite scene in the movie is when they're by the swamp and the thing grabs her underneath.
Yeah.
And it pulls her back. And then, like, they're hiding from it. The suspense is just palpable. And, like, there's the pond. And you see, like, see the splashing. Then you see the alligator coming up.
Yeah.
And then it's, like, very, very scary. And then Natalie Portman gets down on one knee and,
Just
like,
pop, 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 pop. Yeah.
in, like, partially slow motion. And, like, just that scene, like, her face and the way it was shot was just so captivating.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it.
Another great scene right before we switch is right before they're walking into the shimmer. They stop and they kind of just like, you know, it's unknown. You're stepping into the unknown, and the first one to take a step forward is a psychologist with cancer. So she's like, whatever. I don't expect to come out anyway.
Yeah.
Like,
It's that brief moment that you take to kind of ground yourself in the present before you enter the future.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us have that, whether it's like taking that breath before the first day of a new school or of a first job or before, you know, a new chapter in life.
It's the unknown.
It's the savoring that last moment of the present, which will so soon become the past.
Yeah.
And preparing yourself for what's to come.
Yeah.
Good movie, though.
Cool.